In this video, I challenge the way you perceive reality itself. You likely think of the world as solid, made of atoms, matter, and tangible objects. But what if I told you that the ground beneath your feet is nothing more than a mathematical frequency? 2,500 years ago, a man named Pythagoras made a discovery so dangerous that his followers were burned alive to keep it quiet. He found the source code of the universe. But unlocking this code comes with a terrible price. If we fail to understand what he saw, we remain asleep in a simulation of chaos. But if we succeed, we gain the keys to the architecture of destiny itself. Because Pythagoras didn't just teach math, he taught that reality is a construct of vibration. But the world wasn't ready for a truth that dissolved the gods and replaced them with equations. Therefore, a war for your mind began centuries ago, and it continues to this day. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out not at the ocean, but at a sea of geometric patterns, swirling and locking into place to form the waves. This is how Pythagoras saw the world. Born on the island of Samos around 570 BC, he was not satisfied with the mythological explanations of his time. The priests said, "Zeus makes the thunder." Pythagoras asked, "Yes, but how?" He sensed a deeper order, a rhythm beating behind the silence. He realized that the chaos of the natural world was actually a mask for a perfect hidden symmetry. This wasn't just intellectual curiosity, it was a spiritual hunger. He felt trapped in a world of illusions, sensing that there was a lever he could pull to stop the spinning wheel of fate. He decided to leave everything behind, his home, his status, his comfort, to find the men who held the ancient knowledge. He knew that to hack reality, he first had to learn the language of the architects who built it.
Because the answers were not in Greece, Pythagoras turned his gaze south and east. He traveled to the lands where civilization was already ancient, Egypt and Babylon. This was not a vacation, it was an infiltration. The Egyptian priesthood was notoriously secretive. They guarded the mysteries of Thoth, the god of writing and magic, with lethal jealousy. Pythagoras didn't just knock on the door, he submitted himself to their brutal initiation rites. Legend says he had to fast for 40 days, sleep in tombs with the dead, and prove his mastery over his own mind before they would whisper a single word of truth to him. But his persistence broke their resolve. He was admitted into the inner sanctums of the temples at Thebes and Memphis. Here, amidst the scent of burning frankincense and the flickering light of oil lamps, he learned that geometry was not just about measuring land, it was about measuring the soul. The Egyptians taught him that the pyramids were not merely tombs, but machines of resonance, built to specific harmonic proportions that mirrored the stars. But he didn't stop there. He was captured by invading Persians and taken to Babylon, the heart of advanced astronomy. There the Magi taught him the cycles of the heavens. They showed him that the movements of the planets were not random wandering, but a precise clockwork dance governed by numbers. Pythagoras began to synthesize these two great streams of knowledge, the sacred geometry of Egypt and the cosmic arithmetic of Babylon. Therefore, when he finally returned to the West, he was no longer just a man. He was a vessel for a unified theory of everything. He carried a mental weapon that could dismantle the superstitions of the Greeks, and he was looking for a place to plant it.
Upon his return, the defining moment of his life occurred, an epiphany that would change history. The legend goes that Pythagoras was walking past a blacksmith shop. He heard the clanging of hammers striking iron on anvils. Clang, clang, clang. To anyone else, it was just noise, but Pythagoras heard music. He noticed that some hammers, when struck together, produced a harmonious, pleasing sound, while others produced a dissonant, jarring noise. He rushed into the shop, his eyes wide with realization. He wasn't interested in the swords or shields. He grabbed the hammers, he weighed them, and there it was, the secret. He discovered that the relationship between the musical pitch and the weight of the hammer was a simple mathematical ratio. A hammer weighing half as much as another produced a sound exactly 1 octave higher, a ratio of 2 to 1. A ratio of 3 to 2 produced a perfect fifth. A ratio of 4 to 3 produced a perfect fourth. Because sound is vibration, and vibration is determined by number, he realized that music is just math that we can hear. But if music is math, and music has the power to move our souls, then math is the bridge between the physical world and the spiritual realm. Therefore, the entire universe is a symphony. The planets themselves in their orbits must hum a music of the spheres that we cannot hear only because we have been hearing it since birth. This was the hack. Reality is not made of earth, air, fire, and water. It is made of numbers, and if you know the numbers, you can tune the instrument. This discovery was the foundation of his new philosophy. All is number. It meant that the chaotic world could be decoded, predicted, and mastered.
To teach this radical new view of reality, Pythagoras developed a symbol so sacred that his students swore their oaths upon it, the tetractys. Imagine a triangle made of 10 dots, 4 dots at the bottom, 3 above them, 2 above those, and 1 at the top. It looks simple, like a child's game, but do not be deceived. This was the Rosetta Stone of the universe. The tetractys encoded the structure of all existence. The top dot represented the monad, the unity, the source, the divine singularity from which all things flow. The 2 dots below represented duality, male and female, light and dark, limit and unlimited. The 3 dots represented the triad, the harmony that reconciles the opposites. And the 4 dots at the bottom represented the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, the physical manifestation of the world. But here is the kicker. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. To the Pythagoreans, 10 was the perfect number, the decad, representing completion and the return to unity. Because the tetractys contained all the numbers required to build the universe, meditating upon it was thought to unlock psychic powers and deep wisdom. It showed how the intangible spirit descends into dense matter. It was a map of creation. The Pythagoreans believed that by understanding the ratios hidden within this triangle, one could manipulate the physical world. It was alchemy before alchemy existed. They guarded this symbol with their lives. Revealing the secrets of the tetractys to an outsider was a crime punishable by expulsion, or worse. This wasn't just math class, it was a priesthood of the mind. They were decoding the matrix, line by line, dot by dot. Pythagoras settled in Croton, a Greek colony in southern Italy, and established his school. But calling it a school is a massive understatement. It was a cult, a commune, and a scientific research center rolled into one. He attracted hundreds of followers, both men and women, which was revolutionary for the time. But entry was incredibly difficult. First came the acousmatici, the listeners. For 5 full years, new initiates were required to take a vow of absolute silence. They were not allowed to speak, nor were they allowed to see Pythagoras. He taught them from behind a heavy curtain. They could only hear his voice, the voice of the master, delivering truths from the shadows. This was designed to break the ego and force the student to listen, truly listen,
to the silence within. Because they believed in the transmigration of souls, reincarnation, they were strict vegetarians. They believed that eating an animal was akin to eating a friend or ancestor. They lived communally, owning no personal property. Everything was shared. They followed strange specific rules. Do not stir the fire with a knife. Do not eat beans. Do not step over a crossbar. These were likely metaphors for spiritual discipline, but they created an atmosphere of intense ritual. The locals in Croton looked at this compound with a mix of awe and suspicion. Here was a group of people who were taller, stronger, and smarter than everyone else, who claimed to speak the language of the gods and who operated in total secrecy. The Pythagoreans became powerful, influencing the politics of the city. But power breeds envy, and secrecy breeds fear. The pressure cooker was building, and the lid was about to blow off.
Then the betrayal happened, and it didn't come from the outside. It came from the math itself. The Pythagorean worldview was built on the idea that the universe was rational, that everything could be expressed as a ratio of whole numbers, like 1/2, 3/4. This was their religion: order, harmony, ratio. But one of the students, a brilliant man named Hippasus, was studying a square. He drew a line from one corner to the opposite corner, the diagonal. He tried to calculate the length of that diagonal. If the sides of the square were 1, what was the diagonal? He applied Pythagoras' own theorem. 1 squared plus 1 squared equals 2, so the diagonal is the square root of 2. But here was the horror. The square root of 2 cannot be written as a fraction. It is an irrational number. The decimal goes on forever without a repeating pattern. 1.4142136 into infinity. Chaos, madness. It was a glitch in the matrix. It meant that at the heart of their perfect, orderly universe was an unmeasurable, chaotic abyss. Hippasus had stared into the void, and the void stared back. He shared this discovery. The reaction was not applause, it was panic. This discovery threatened to destroy everything they believed in. It proved that the universe was not perfectly rational. The legend says that the Pythagoreans took Hippasus out on a boat to the middle of the sea. Because he had revealed the unutterable, he was thrown overboard and drowned. They murdered him to save the theory. They tried to suppress the truth of irrational numbers, but you cannot hide a mathematical fact forever. The crack in the foundation had appeared.
The drowning of Hippasus was a grim omen, but the end of the Pythagorean order came from a rejected applicant. A wealthy nobleman named Cylon wanted to join the brotherhood. Cylon was powerful, arrogant, and used to getting what he wanted. But Pythagoras looked into his soul, or perhaps analyzed his numerology, and saw a tyrant. He rejected Cylon. Humiliated and enraged, Cylon decided that if he couldn't join the brotherhood, he would destroy it. He used his wealth to whip the citizens of Croton into a frenzy. He spread rumors. These elitists are plotting to overthrow the government. They are practicing dark magic. They are eating your babies. It worked. A mob formed, armed with torches and pitchforks. They marched on the meeting house where the inner circle of Pythagoreans was gathered. They blocked the exits and set the building on fire. The flames roared, consuming the scrolls, the instruments, and the wisdom of decades. Some accounts say Pythagoras was inside and perished in the flames. Others say his students threw their bodies onto the fire to create a bridge for him to escape. He fled into the night, an old man running from the destruction of his life's work. Legend says he reached a field of beans. Because of his sacred vow never to cross a bean field, perhaps due to a belief that beans contained the souls of the dead, he stopped. He turned to face his pursuers. He chose death over compromising his principles. They cut him down where he stood. The man who hacked reality was killed by the brute force of an ignorant mob.
The school was burned, The master was dead. The followers were scattered. But you cannot kill an idea. The survivors went underground. They carried the fragments of the secret teachings with them to other parts of Greece and Italy. They stopped speaking openly. They became a secret society, communicating through symbols and handshakes. One of the men who picked up these fragments was Plato. Plato traveled to Italy, bought the surviving Pythagorean books at an exorbitant price, and wove their teachings into his own philosophy. When you read Plato, you are reading the ghost of Pythagoras. Through Plato, the idea that math is the language of nature survived the Dark Ages. It resurfaced during the Renaissance. Copernicus, Kepler, Newton, all of them were essentially Pythagoreans. Kepler, who discovered the laws of planetary motion, was explicitly trying to find the music of the spheres that Pythagoras had predicted. He found it. He proved that the planets move in elliptical orbits that follow precise harmonic ratios. Then came Nikola Tesla, who famously said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." That is pure Pythagoreanism. The lineage never died, it just changed costumes. The computer you are watching this on, the algorithms that run the internet, the binary code of zeros and ones, it all traces back to that first realization that reality is number. The hacker's code was preserved, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to catch up.
But how does this apply to you? You might think, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a physicist. But remember the first principle, all is number. That includes you. Your name is a vibration. Your birth date is a coordinate in time. In the Pythagorean system, every letter of the alphabet corresponds to a number. A is 1, B is 2, and so on. By converting your name into numbers, you can reveal the frequency of your soul. This isn't fortune-telling, it's data analysis. It's reading the metadata of your character. Why do you keep repeating the same mistakes? Why are you drawn to certain people? Why do you have specific talents? It's in your code. Just as a software program runs based on its script, your life runs based on your numerological blueprint. The life path number, derived from your date of birth, describes the trajectory of your destiny. The destiny number, from your full name, describes your purpose. Pythagoras taught that once you understand your numbers, you stop being a victim of fate and start being a co-creator. You can harmonize your life. If you are a 1, you are a leader, a pioneer. If you try to live as a follower, you will be out of tune, and your life will feel like that dissonant hammer in the blacksmith shop, jarring and painful. But if you align with your frequency, you resonate, you amplify. This is the practical application of the secret teaching. It is the tool for self-mastery.
We have traveled from the caves of Samos to the temples of Egypt, through the fire of Croton to the digital age. Pythagoras showed us that the universe is not a random accident. It is a masterpiece of design. He paid for this knowledge with his life, but he left us the keys. The ultimate secret he tried to teach us is not just that the universe is made of numbers, but that you are the number 1, the monad, the source. You are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. The consciousness that calculates 2 plus 2 is the same consciousness that spins the galaxies. When you start to see the patterns, the synchronicities, the repeating numbers on the clock, the geometric beauty of a flower, you are waking up from the simulation. You are hacking reality. The world wants you to stay asleep, to believe in the chaos, to live in fear. But the Pythagorean legacy offers a different path, the path of order, truth, and harmony. The code is there. It's written in the stars, in the atoms, and in your own heart. All you have to do is learn to read it, because in the end, the
The math doesn't lie, and neither does your soul. If you want to know what your personal numbers say about your destiny, if you want to see the blueprint of your own life, check the link in the description. The calculation has already been done. Are you brave enough to look at the answer?